Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, how's it going, guys? I hope everything's going well for you guys. How is it going? I hope you guys are doing good. I am going to be working on coloring page 152 of Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This is a graphic novel I've been working on for a really long time, and am just trying to get through that last chunk of pages that I got to make. So without further ado, let's get into the art. This is the page I'm currently coloring. I was going to try to color it last night, but took the dogs out for a walk. I realized that I could probably stay up till like 3 in the morning working on this, and then be a wreck today, or I could work on it today after getting some sleep. And I think I wisely made the decision to kind of put off coloring it for today. So that's what we're going to do. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to talk and gab about stuff. So one of the things that I may not have talked about recently is what I love about comics as like a reading experience for people, and also as like an art challenge. So for me, like part of why I do graphic novels is I remain fairly convinced that comics are kind of like a form of storytelling, if possibly one of the best forms of storytelling. That kind of almost goes back to like ancient times. So like back to like hieroglyphics and stuff like that. I feel like telling sequential narratives, having images and text is like a really just nice way to kind of communicate story experience than I think a lot of other mediums. So like it requires more active participation than like say like a television show or something like that, which has its benefits and its negatives. Like for instance, while I'm drawing, I could have a podcast on or an audiobook on, right? And kind of get the gist of the story that I'm at least listening to, or hypothetically, I could have somebody like read me the book and still kind of experience the story. But a comic, I don't know, it's not really the kind of book you can like have an audio book version playing on in the background. It's a really active medium. And I think novels are active mediums too. But again, you know, you have these moments where you can read them out loud or have like an audio version of it. or a reading of it, and still get a similar experience. But I'd say novels are an active medium, but I think they require less active engagement than comics. Like I think comics really require you to just pay attention to the comic when you're reading it. Like it's really hard to, for me, like I've mentioned this before, um I have trouble like focusing on reading new graphic novels while I'm making comics, because it's like it just requires so much active engagement to read. But because your brain is kind of putting together the sequence of images and text at the same time, I guess children's books are very similar to this too. Picture books, right? Any sequential work. But I feel like more than anything, comics really require your full participation. Um, and I think I just did the wrong color for the main character. Oh wait, I haven't colored her yet. Okay, that's good. Um, so this scene is basically Wilson, the maid of Elizabeth. She's in her Italian maid outfit. She has like two maid outfits so far in the storyline. I think I'm gonna stick with those two because, like, generally, I don't think maids in the Victorian era had like a bunch of different work uniforms. But anyhow, so like I think that's what draws me to making comics is like I rarely had a profound experience like reading stuff as just a reader than I have with comics or with engaging with comics. Not even necessarily existing comics, um, but other comics. You know, like that's my dogs. They're letting me know there's a delivery of some sort or a neighbor walking by. But yeah, I feel like comics require you to pay so much attention to them. Because you're kind of putting together sequences. I'll have to wait for these guys to quiet down a little bit. Okay, guys. Okay. We hear you. Dylan said, how are you doing today? I'm doing good. I'm doing good, Dylan. How are you? Yeah, so I feel like, you know, when you're reading a comic, you're kind of looking at images in sequence and you're sort of determining the pace of the story, right? It's not like a an animation or is kind of dictated before you. And you're also imagining and bringing to it kind of a lot of what you'd bring to like a novel where you're like imagining sequences. In a novel, it's fully your imagination based on the words for your visuals, you know? But it's like in and the words can kind of give you little anchors to like kind of branch out from. Like they can kind of paint a visual picture. But you have a lot of freedom. Like if you were to, before seeing Lord of the Rings, you were reading Lord of the Rings as a book without any illustrations, your version of Gandalf might look a lot different in your head than my version, you know, in my head. And there are certain parameters that the authors set forward, but it's going to have a little bit of variation. It's a much more kind of participatory process. Um, with comics, I feel like it requires a lot of participation and imagination, but there's more control from the author over like what you're going to be seeing. Like as you're doing that imagination, like there's more control over the visual, but there's still the required kind of filling in the blanks of the reader. And then your mind is kind of having to process visual and textual things, but you're in control of time with comics, like as the viewer. And there's little indicators that cartoonists can give you for like how fast or slow to read certain sections. But at the end of the day, like comics are like one of the like a good example. I have had a few moments reading a book where like I'll come across a passage that's so compelling I'll like highlight it or maybe write it down so I can memorize it, you know, because it's like such a really good section of words. But I don't have that happen as often as I do with comics, where sometimes in a comic, when I'm knee deep in a story, I'll just pause and look at a page for like a really long period of time just to kind of absorb and enjoy the art that I'm seeing. It's just a really unique medium. Uh, Jim brings up a really good example. He says his version of Gandalf has platform heels. Exactly. Exactly. So so anyhow, like I think that might be one of the main reasons that I stick with comics. I think another reason I really like comics as an art as a form of expression or storytelling is it's just the one thing I never feel like I'm going to fully master. And I hope that doesn't sound cocky. The concept of making a comic that like perfectly tackles every problem that comes up when you're trying to make a comic. Like, do you have paneling? Do you have coherence? Do you have clarity? I think clarity is the most important thing of any comic you can make. I think you need to have a clear story. It needs to be able to tell a story that people can understand. Even if it's an abstract story, it should be clear in its intentions, right? And with comics, because of paneling and multiple images and a lot of text and sound effects and panel flow and time and all these different considerations, I just feel like there's so many challenges with comics, um, that are very unique to comics, that like design and art challenges. That to me, I feel like it's like the one medium. Well, I guess it's one of the few mediums that feels like I just would be at a loss to ever really fully master the thing. Because you get at drawing characters in sequence, then you're like thinking about, well, yeah, but are my compositions interesting? And then when you start composing interesting panels, you're like, yeah, but are my page compositions interesting? And then you start getting into page composition, and suddenly you're like, well, yeah, I've got this down, but do I have dynamic paneling down? And then how do I push the dynamic paneling to a point where it doesn't challenge the readability of it? And you kind of go down Pandora's box, right? Because it's like you get good at type, but then you're like, well, how can I expand what I'm doing with type? Or, how can I make sure all my kerning is like perfect? And there's just nothing to kind of stop the process from being very challenging and interesting. And I guess I find that really unique to comics. Dylan was saying, I bet he slays Jim. I would say a Gandalf wearing platform shoes. A platform shoe wearing wizard would be pretty fantastic. I need to reconsider what I'm doing for the color of this door. Like the color of that door on the other side is this side, but I feel like the frame might be a different color in this new room. I actually have photo references for this room that I should try to find if I can. It's like a really unique, specific hallway in the Casa Gaidi house, so it kind of needs to be accurate to that. Dylan said, I've seen a good amount of how to create comic videos, and I've been seeing IG webcomics balloons being in the proper order. And I'm like, that Leo DiCaprio meme where he's pointing. Jim said, are there any Easter eggs in this story? You know, I mean, I throw in a lot of little details that are from history and stuff, but I actually, on this one, I haven't. It might be because of the era of time that it takes place. Oh, there is one Easter egg. There are one of them is I threw Frank Salazar as a character in one of the pages. He's a character in like one of the crowd scenes wearing like vintage goggles. I have him as Captain Goggles. And there's a couple friends and stuff. I think I threw Chris Caligula in there too. So I had forgotten about that. But there's not like a ton of Easter eggs. Like a lot of the time with comics, where I'll throw in like little Easter eggs. Hold on a sec. Let me find. With comics, when I'll find Easter eggs or throw in Easter eggs. Okay, well, let's just get the colors working from the previous page, and then I'll look into the hallway thing. Yeah, usually when I throw in Easter eggs in comics, it'll be things like posters or like if they're at a bookstore, you know, there'll be like different titles on books or, you know, there's like a city scene and it's like I'll shout out somebody's name for like the name of a restaurant or something like that. Like actually Jacob's Apartment, the restaurant that they have a date in is named after a good friend of mine's last name. Is the name of the restaurant. That was like a little shout out to, you know, the friend and stuff. And or like Sarah in Jacob's Apartment is wearing like a Cursive t-shirt, you know, because I love Cursive. And it's like the Ugly Organ album cover. Which is a great album, one of my favorites. But yeah, it's this one's doesn't have as many Easter eggs that are like indicating something outside of the time frame. And I think a lot of it's just because I really want to try. Now again, I may not be successful at, but my attempt real to the history as possible. Which has really made this take a little bit longer than like a story in the present age. Or a story that's just like vaguely like time. I think using things. That's kind of why a historical interesting to me. Because I had never done like historical fiction before. I think I've done illustrations from different parts of history and stuff for clients, but like I've never had to do a whole comic taking place in a historical world that actually existed. However, I'm sure there's like a million details I'm losing. Jim said, "Hey, Glendale." Who's Glendale? Hello, Glendale. Hello, Burbank. How's it going? I'm just going to shout out different areas in LA County. What's up, Pasadena? I guess I don't actually incorporated and unincorporated areas of the unincorporated areas and the incorporated areas of Los Angeles are so confusing. Like I said, like where I live is technically considered LA County, but then there's like a little section of the Antelope Valley of Lancaster that's not considered LA County. And then it becomes like a different district too. And it's funny, it's like 3 streets away from me. They have like a different representative. It's It's very strange when you start looking just locally into like, representatives and districts and Oh, Dylan said there's a Glendale, Arizona. Hello, Glendale. Are you ready to rock? I can't believe there's a Glendale, Arizona. I wonder which came first. Which do you think came first? Glendale, Arizona or Glendale, California? That's actually something I should look into at some point. Like maybe you Arizonites might know, but like California established before Arizona as a state. Like I don't remember my history well enough to remember when Arizona was like, made a state. Because to me, Glendale's very associated with, like, I don't know, that seems like a very California name. But then I think about it, like all of these names of cities and stuff. Do you guys ever like see city names and kind of wish they were a little more creative? What's shaking, Flagstaff? How's it going, Tucson? I think that's what we should start doing, Jim. Is let's just start calling people by the name of like where they reside. Just be like, hey, yo, Carson. What's up, Carson? Right? I mean, when we're talking to Scott, we can be like, what up, surprise? How you doing? Um, it the immature person in me like always finds it really funny when whenever Scott Circlin says surprise as the name of a city. Like it's just such a funny name for a city. Like what is the history but behind surprise? Was it like a guy who's like a, wealthy like merchant or something, and he's like, I need to think of a surprise for my wife for our 50th anniversary. And then, he's like, on her birthday, like, and here's your surprise, Arizona. There it is. Or Jim the Covenian. I love it. You could call him. I don't remember which side of Covina Jim's from. So, I mean, you might have to be like, what's up, West? Antelope Valley sounds like a really great children's book title. Well, here's the weird thing. So, a lot like repeat, um, like wherever you're at. So, um, even Lancaster, there's a Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like, it, I don't know. I feel like people could have been a little more creative with city names when they were naming them. Does everything have to be like somethingville or Dale? Or Hill? Like, I feel like it's like Dale, Hill, Springs, Forest. Like, I don't know. It just seems like they were really, I don't know. And I know there's a city of hell somewhere. I can't remember. Is that in Arizona? It sounds like an Arizonan thing. But someone actually named their city hell. Actually, Jim, the Covenian would be a great barbarian. It's a barbarian from West Covina. Because it sounds a little Conan-ish. Covenian the barbarian. Oh man, if only we were pro wrestlers, Jim. That would be a good pro wrestler name. Covenian the barbarian would be a great wrestler name. That's insane. Thomas said surprise was named because they would be surprised if it ever amounted to anything. So it was a wealthy landowner's gift to his wife. He's like, surprise, good luck making this anything. And then he hands her divorce papers. Oh, man. Okay, what do we got here? What do we have? Burt Lancaster could have been named Burt Palmdale. Yeah, I am in no place to talk badly about anyone's hometown. The only time I've mentioned this before, but one of the rare times I actually really love the area I live in. But I will say the only time you ever really hear about the area I live in the news, it's usually like some kind of horrible murder, like something really bad happened. That's usually if you look at just like international or national news, anytime anywhere outside of the Antelope Valley mentions the Antelope Valley, it's usually in the context of some horrible event that happened. Rarely are people like talking about like, I guess we have the Poppy Festival, you know. We do have one of the best microbreweries in the world. That's pretty cool. I like our microbrewery brewery Bravery Brewing is a great brewery out here, and the owner's really nice. Like Brian's a good dude. What's up, Grand Rapids? I love it. You know, Paul is joining us in the chats. Paul Pate, great cartoonist, cartoonist extraordinaire, author of the great Detective Perez comics, which are really affordable on Amazon, and you should read them. Like 100-page graphic novels for like a lot of times you're going to spend like less than like $10 on them, which is a steal. It's you guys should definitely make sure you read those books. They're a lot of fun. But speaking of names, how cool of a name is Paul Pate? Like that just I feel like you can't do much with Kemble. You know, it's just not a power last name. My wife's last name is much stronger, you know. Like she gave up a power. That's where I knew my wife really cared about me, cuz she gave up like a power last name for a weak ass name. There's just some last names that sound really like, ugh, you know? One of them, Paul is one of them. Like Paul Pate. Pate sounds like you mean business, you know? You know? That could be a lead character in a story. The worst name for a city is Soiled Undergarment, Arizona. It's always interesting. Like whenever I have gone down the rabbit hole of like names before. Why is that? Oh, I see. Okay, I see what's happening here. I see where I erred, and I shall fix it. Okay, let's get that. Let's get that. All right. Yeah, so I feel like every once in a while I'll go down like a name rabbit hole and just look at like origins of people's names. It's always really fascinating and often quite boring. Like where it's like, oh, so somebody named this because they were a baker, and so they'd be like, this person bakes bread and we need a name for them, so we will name them Mr. Bread. Um, it is interesting how names used to be based on like industries you worked in. And I feel like maybe we should just redo the last name thing and modernize it, you know? Like, it should be Joshua Art Teacher is really, I mean, that's kind of how they used to name it back in the day, you know? Um, I mean, there literally are names like Gardener, and you know what I mean? Like, these were all names based on, like, that guy. Oh, what's his name? It's Bob Gardner. He doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's interesting. It's interesting to me that isn't a thing anymore. Cartoon Maka. Das Cartoon Maka. Cartoon Maka is a great name for a that's like a straight like industrial band there because of the mocker, and it would have, like umlauts above the A in mocker. Cartoon Maka. Here. What is Sawyer? Is Sawyer for reporting? Oh, Sawyer. Sawyer. He saw your. Is that what you're saying? Like he saw you? Yeah, I mean, we've got like a cartoon mocker plan. A clan here. The clan of Cartoon Mocker. Oh, a Sawyer is like it's like a saw. Oh, got it. That's interesting. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's just fascinating to me that like a lot of names' origins aren't super creative. They're kind of just very on the nose. It's like you know what I mean. You'd think I think creative with them, but they're like, nope. This is just on the nose. Just kind of like Bob Dentist. And you're like, well, why is your name Bob Dentist? Well, I'm a dentist. What else? Dentist might be the worst last name somebody could have. Um, Doctor Dentist. Doctor. That has to be a character in something. What do you guys think? Doctor Dentist? Something like that. But anyhow, I'm just saying maybe we should return to those days of just people's names being their profession, you know? Like Donald used car salesman. You know? That's a fair point. Jim was saying right now, the worst would be Sean Diddy Trump as your name. You do kind of wonder if we're like really big fans of Puff Daddy's music for whatever reason. I don't know why anyone would be a fan of his music. That's the thing that always baffles me is like I don't know how anybody like Combs's musical output. That to me that era of music was like outside of him being, what seems like a incredibly disturbed and dangerous individual. Um, it just like mystifies me that there was a point in time where people I remember, I think it was like late high school, early college for me when everybody was really into these like weird, shiny Puff Daddy videos. And he had this like rapper who couldn't rap named Mace. So it was like Puff Daddy and Mace. And they were just doing these horrible like songs that weren't even really bangers. They weren't really even bothering to like rap over them or anything. It was just like straight samples of previous hits. Um, with just like over it. It's an interesting era in time, and the videos would just have like a lot of lighting and big, uh, I don't know, just like ridiculous like shiny tracksuits kind of thing. It was a weird time. I'm just saying. Um, for music, I feel like that might be the dark ages of hip hop. Chef Boyard Epstein. That's awful, but kind of amazing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like an XQC video. There's a streamer named XQC, and when he's talking to his chats, he'll be like, chat, I tell you something, chat. You don't believe this, chat. He's like the, he's the, like, anyhow, there are some times when I'm talking to people in chats where I want to do that and be like, chat, what is going on, chat? How are you doing? Like, I can't even explain. I can't do his accent either. He has like a really interesting. I think he's French Canadian or something. Um, but he's like a commentary, video game poker streamer. I don't think I've ever really watched his stuff, but like I think he was one of the OGs. The the Puff Daddy and Mace of YouTube streaming. Jim said, "When I was a little kid, I used to think that Miller would be a cool last year. I don't know. As a kid, maybe beer's not cool, but it does seem very like, what's up? My name's Coors Miller, and I'll tell you what, Bud Miller. You know, what do you think? Like, wouldn't that? I don't know. I'm sure that originally originates in somebody who just ran a mill, though. They're like, yeah, I run the mill. My name is Mr. Miller. That's why it's like, there's got to be a guy named like Johnny Post Office. Like, come on, guys, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. All right, let's bring back the names based on places, professions. Wilson means son of will, but there also could be multiple origins. It could mean will, desire, helmet, protector, willful protector. Sounds kind of cool now. It is until you find out why Will's son had to wear a helmet, Oh god. I'm sorry. That's horrible. There was a sidearm pitcher for the Pirates named Kent Tekulve. Always thought that was fancy. Nice. Oh no. Jim said, I thought you would appreciate this. I tried saying Hulk Hogan to my phone, and I thought I said Uncle Coogan. Uncle Coogan. That's a great name. I don't know why it's funny. It's just got a funny sound to it. Hey, you guys! Toad Road Comics in the house. How's it going, Adam? Jim said, "What's up, Pacific Northwest? Pac North? How you doing? Yeah, it's Pac North." All right. Oh my goodness. What do we got? What do we got? So, Adam, we were just talking about how strange and kind of were, where people would just kind of come up with a name based on a career of somebody. So it'd be like Bob Accountant, and it's like, you look into the origins of names, and some of them are very like bland, where it'd be like they were a baker. Which, by the way, that's a pretty cool last name if that was your profession. Who doesn't like a baker? I feel like probably one of the least hated professions on the earth is making food. Maybe the people who do it aren't, it seems like a hard life and stuff, but it does seem like a very popular thing. Like, I don't think anybody would be bummed out to be who are good at making food. Um, yeah, Adam was saying interesting, like John Shoemaker. Yeah, so we were saying we should just start naming people, in our community based on like where they live. So I'd just be like Joshua Lancaster. We're just doing some flat coloring. What are you guys all working on? I'd love to hear it. I'm going to try to finish up this page during this stream. That's the goal. Chat. Oh, that's a different background color. Oh, that's a different roof. Darn it. Darn it, darn it, darn it. Darn tootin'. I picked the wrong darn tootin' room. Does anybody say darn tootin' anymore? That's a great phrase. Like, darn tootin' is fantastic. Gary said, catching up on day job work after a week off, picking through 66 unread emails. Yeah, that's the worst. I've lost track of like school stuff, and then I think today I noticed that I had missed a couple emails about the upcoming semester and was like, crap, I gotta not forget, not lose touch with the thing. This room has been in this comic multiple times, so I have to find the room color. I don't want to change the color of the roof randomly. Did you guys know that Roof is on Fire song? Do you guys remember the Roof is on Fire by the Bloodhound Gang or whatever? Did you guys know that's a ripoff of a Pixies? Also shout out Frank Black in it. Dylan said, Thomas, a quick search brought up Nice Wander is an Americanized form of the Swiss German name Neuschenwander, which means living on newly cleared land. I guess at the end of the day, how creative can you be with the last name, you know? Jim said, I'm currently working on TPSM issue 6. There's dinosaurs on an island, but a very particular island. Nice. That was a good joke. The version of Jurassic Park Jim and I want to make is kind of fantastic. I don't know how much of that I can get into. I don't want to reveal too many secrets, of the plan. All right. So I'm literally okay, there we go. That's what I needed. I had to find a previous scene in the room. Okay, so this roof is actually going to be like this in those areas. Oh, now I see. Now I see where I have erred. So what I need to do is this. And then I need to kind of reselect this guy. See if we can do it continuous. There we go. And then we'll find just a few little sections here. I thought that would be quicker, but it's taking longer. There we go. Okay, now that I've got all that previous room stuff out of the way, now's where we're going to rock this business. Pull up some reference of said room, of said hallway. I don't think we've shown the hallway yet in the book, so. But the hallway exists. It is a real hallway. The corridors of the mind. I do like the idea of a Jurassic Park where it's dinosaurs going to visit humans, like the first episode of Star Trek back in the day, where the aliens were putting humans in a zoo. And they were like, look at these strange creatures. And of course, because it's like early science fiction, it's like the zoo's just like William Shatner thrown into like a cage with like a bunch of attractive ladies. And they're like, we need them to breed. It's very... I don't know if you guys have seen the original, like the first Star Trek episode, but it's kind of amazing. It's wonderful. All right. What do we have here? Let me pull this off. Sharing here. Okay. I'm just looking for something super quick. Jim said, did you know Anthony City is going to be on tour with the Smiths as their lead singer? Who's Anthony City? You gotta be kidding me. Anthony Kiedis singing for the Smiths. You've got to be kidding me. That. I mean, that would be Anthony Kiedis doing the Smiths. Oh, I can't. Nature is the language. I can't even imagine. Ask me, ask me, ask me. I don't even know what that would sound like. I can't even visualize it. That's it's mind blowing to the point where it's like I just don't even know how that works. I literally was having moments of like trying to imagine that in my head and maybe do like a parody of it, but I'm like I can't even comprehend. Anthony Kiedis doing the Smiths. That just doesn't. That just. That's very funny though. Dylan said, "People just got to breed." I wonder if Nick Cannon and Elon would pop on into the chat. Nick Cannon, Elon. I'm not. I didn't follow that one too much. All right, what do we got here? Alden is an interesting last name. That's a power name, right? Where it's like, at some point your relative was, a soldier, right? It's like if your last name's Sword or something. That's pretty cool, Or as Wu-Tang would say it, a sword. I always thought that was cool on 36 Chambers where they'd say my wood. All right, guys. Let's see here. Oh, I was getting distracted. I gotta find said reference. Reference, where are you? Oh, Nick. Okay, I'm following you, Dylan. Elon is a father of many souls. I always find that weird too. Do you think sometimes like you'll watch movies with like a supervillain and you'll think it's like really exaggerated and stuff, like if I watched a movie where there's like some guy who's super wealthy, trying to like buy their way into like running the government and change car factories, and then on top of that they randomly like have like some weird obsession with like forever youth, like they have like hair plug extensions and like are like trying to have a million children so they can like live on eternally, and are researching neuroscience so they can extend their life because they're so afraid of death. I'd be like, that's a really good villain, but it's kind of far-fetched. Like it's like a Bond villain, like where it's like it's just like straight up we're in a reality where Bond villains are actually pretty tame because you're like, oh, this guy actually exists. And then you make him the richest man in the world. And like anybody reading the script of Elon Musk would be like, hey, you got to make him a little more believable. Like, if he sang all the Smiths songs. I was trying to think of like how would you do "There Is a Light That'll Never Go Out," but in Kiedis, I can't. You got to take a crack at it, Jim, because I can't even. My brain just short circuits trying to combine the two. Like I can do a fake Anthony Kiedis where you're like, sometimes I feel like I don't ever feel. I can do that, but like it doesn't even compute in my head for "There Is a Light That Never." Go like, and I can do a fake Morrissey too, where you're like, oh, like there is a light, like that kind of thing. But I can't. That the streams it just short circuits my brain thinking of Kiedis doing it. Like it's definitely funny, especially if he does like. He does like and if a 10 truck kills the both of us, suck my kiss. Like it's just the worst. It's the worst combo I can ever imagine. Somebody needs to do like a remix of the Smiths, like you know those remix songs where they combine like two songs and combine like Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Smiths and like mix them together. Oh, Thomas was saying, look up a photo of Elon's mother. She looks more like a Bond villain than than Eon. Okay, guys, I gotta, guys, chat. I'm gonna just do that XQC thing. It's just too funny. Chat, you won't believe. um, so I'm trying to find reference photo. I have one photograph from the location. There, thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, this is the weird thing. So this Casa Guidi place actually exists, right? So this is the hallway villa, and I just found faintness. Okay, because I need to see what color it is. Okay. I think I found it and dragged it in here. Okay, there we go. I want to be somewhat true. I want to be. There's a Kendrick Lamar song that's like, I want to be with you. It's a good song. I love Kendrick Lamar, but anytime I'm like thinking of saying the words I want to be, now I have to be like, I want to be. I I almost want to pay to see Anthony Kiedis. I think the worst thing I heard was oh my gosh, who's the guy who sang for Nirvana? He's got like tattoos all over his face. He's a band that he's like a musician that like is in a bunch of movies and stuff as a character, but like I don't really know anything about his music. I know he's big with the generation after me, and I think not so big with the generation after that. Do you guys went on tour like as the front man of Nirvana? And it was just, or I don't know if they actually ended up going on tour, but it was like it was not a good choice. Post Malone, that's it. So I don't know anything from Post Malone. Like I don't know what his music sounds like, but the idea of like Post Malone Nirvana just as a guy who kind of was a fan at the time, that just does not sound like a great. It just sounds kind of almost like heretical, you know. Um, I actually there's a couple times where Nirvana did like reunion shows, and they had like Kim Gordon doing like territorial pissings and stuff, and that was cool. Like that was cool as hell. Um, but just to pick somebody like Post Malone would just seem like a real bad. Again, I'm not, you know, I'm not the arbiter of all taste or anything, but it seemed like a pretty bad one. What is Post Malone known for? I know, like, I guess I'd have to look into his music or something because I've never really, I never really, I think I was tuned out of the hip culture, what all the hip kids are into by that point. I want this to be a little more. I wonder what this looks like if I just go with white. Just white. There we go. I think that works pretty well. Okay, we're going to do that. Okay, we have one panel finished. He has a song called Circles. There's a great Sunny Day Real Estate called Circles. Man, that's crazy. Have you guys ever heard the thing with Sunny Day Real Estate's drummer and the Foo Fighters? If you ever want to go down like weird music trivia, look into Sunny Day Real Estate and the Foo Fighters. It's pretty saucy, like rock drama kind of stuff. Apparently back in the day, so a lot of you guys may not have heard of Sunny Day Real Estate, and that's okay. You should check out, if you haven't heard Sunny Day Real Estate, you should hear them. They're amazing. And they were on Sub Pop, and kind of like are a band that was one of the post-hardcore bands that's kind of credited with influencing a lot of the emo movement. But like, it's back when emo was kind of part of it was like a post-hardcore thing. So like one of the first bands to really be called emo back in the day was Rites of Spring, which is like a Discord band that ended up, obviously Guy from Rites of Spring, the singer from Rites of Spring, ended up being in Fugazi. He's the other singer. So you got Ian McKay and Guy. Anyhow, so you have this band that's kind of like that kind of sound, but got a little more singery in their music. And they were called Sunny Day Real Estate. They were incredible. And apparently Dave Grohl was a big fan of Diary, the album by Sunny Day Real Estate. And how did Dave Grohl know about Sunny Day Real Estate? Well, Dave Grohl was on Sub Pop, right? So, you know what I mean? So like they knew because they shared a record label and stuff. So anyhow, when Nirvana ended, Dave Grohl was putting together like a touring act for the first Foo Fighters album, and he had basically like the bassist and the drummer for Sunny Day Real Estate like be his touring act. Yeah, Dylan was saying his other famous songs are Congratulations, Rockstar, Better Now, and Goodbyes. Yeah, see, I don't know enough about Don't is that would be a great cover band of Husker Du. But anyhow, so Dave Grohl like puts out, his solo album for the Foo Fighters. He's basically done all the tracks, but as they're touring it around, they end up basically adding these two members of Sunny Day Real Estate, the newly disbanded Sunny Day Real Estate, to be his like rhythm section. So he basically like poaches their bassist and drummer. And I think the drummer's name was it William Golding? Hold on. Let me see. I'm going to look this one up. William Golding. Golding. Drums. Maybe not. I'll just look at. I'm gonna take the one moment to actually look some stuff up. Drummer from Sunny Day Real Estate, because it's just skipping my. William Goldsmith. That's it. William Goldsmith. Okay, so William Goldsmith is their drummer. And then, like, he basically tours around and is basically telling his, like, touring band, Dave Grohl is telling his touring band, like, dude, you guys are great. This is a band now, right? We're an actual band, and does, like, live performances and music videos. are featuring these members of the band because they're now officially in the Foo Fighters, and they're basically told, like, you know, we're going to record this album, The Color and the Shape, and you guys are going to write the parts for it. Like, I'm not going to write everything like I did in the first album. So, you know, Dave Grohl wrote most of the songs, but he lets them come up with the parts and stuff like that. They go to the studio. They spend months recording The Color and the Shape, which is a great album, by the way. And William Goldsmith goes and tracks all of these drum parts that he you know, this is the claim. And if you've heard Sunny Day Real Estate, he's an excellent drummer. He's like, I mean, the drums for Sunny, a lot of the Color and the Shape stuff sound like they kind of have some of his types of choices, even though Dave Grohl is arguably one of the best drummers in rock and roll history. William Goldsmith is a great drummer. So Goldsmith goes, he tracks all his parts, and then Dave Grohl talks to the rest of his band, including his from Sunny Day Real Estate, like William Goldsmith's friend, and basically says, we've been recording for months. And he makes William Goldsmith do like 80 takes, like, per song. So he does like 80 just repeated takes of the songs. Like, nothing's perfect enough. And so Goldsmith goes through all of this, and then basically Dave Grohl calls the rest of the band, has them all go without William Goldsmith for another month into the recording studio without letting William Goldsmith know this, and pretty much retracks every single drum track that William Goldsmith spent, you know, 80 takes perfecting. And then basically doesn't tell him he did this until the album is released. And so when the album comes out, William Goldsmith's like, wait a minute, I didn't record, like, he's like, for there's two things that bugged him. One was he came up with a lot of the parts that Dave Grohl tracked and credited himself with. And the other is that he basically, without his knowledge, kind of kicked him out of the recording process, but then was like, yeah, but we're still cool and you're still touring with me. Smith just quit the Foo Fighters. The bassist from Sunny Day Real Estate stayed on and has been the bassist for the Foo Fighters since. This is my understanding of it. So there is like a huge tension between like William Goldsmith, like, and Dave Grohl. Their story is like, it's like, you can look it up, but there's like a drama there between musicians. And there have been times where they've tried to patch it up. There's more drama with Sunny Day Real Estate and the Foo Fighters as well, because I saw them live during one. But there was one where they actually had a full reunion, like, of the band. And not only that, Dave Grohl was so excited about it, supposedly, that he offered to, this is all like conjecture too. This is all just stuff I've heard from different things. But so he offers to record, basically Dave Grohl has like a crap load of money, and he's like, hey guys, just come to my like, I guess Grohl had access to a really nice studio and was like, just track it, I'll help produce it. We'll make a new Sunny Day Real Estate album. And so all the Sunny Day Real Estate fans are like, yes, this is amazing. And so Sunny Day goes, tracks this, supposedly, again, this is all rumor, but tracks a full album, and then Dave Grohl basically just refuses to release the this is the rumor, but apparently Dave Grohl like refused to release the masters of this non-existent Sunny Day Real Estate album. So this album they recorded never came out, and ever since then the bassist will not play with Sunny Day Real Estate anymore. And so anyhow, they basically had to like replace that guy in Sunny Day Real Estate. But my point is, there's legends of beef between William Goldsmith and Dave Grohl that are like kind of in that rock history beefs kind of thing. But a lot of people don't know, Sunny Day Real Estate, and should, because again, that's like just a great band. Whether and I'm a guy, I'm a guy who likes Dave Grohl. I think Dave Grohl's pretty. I'm not like the biggest Foo Fighters fan, but I will say The Color and the Shape is like almost I'd say like a close to a perfect album, and the drums on that album are just unbelievable, right? So maybe the choice that Grohl made was right, because maybe he was more inventive with the drum lines. But there are parts of the drums on that album that sound more like Sunny Day Real Estate drums than they do Foo Fighter drums. And so the conjecture that William Goldsmith got kind of screwed in the process is very possible. But here's another thing. It's like, I do think to be good at something, because reputation in the music industry for being very controlling. Like, they did a documentary on the Foo Fighters, like, recording an album, and he even admits to being very like controlling of the sound and the music that he makes. So anyhow, it's interesting. That's all I'm saying. That's drama. Some drama that nerds like me kind of care. When I was into music as a younger person, I didn't really know any of the dramas, so I had to find out a lot of this stuff, after the fact. But it is interesting. I kind of like, Paul, that you're so into the Bee Gees. I'll admit the Bee Gees are kind of pretty rad. I'll give the Bee Gees some credit. Oh, this is going to be the other side of the room. Man, it's hard to like kind of keep track of the color here, but I think I've got it. If you could finish this book tomorrow, what would your choice for the next book be? I already have it lined up. It's 2 Stories, book 2. Because that project is already well underway. I have the whole book roughed out and quite a few pages done for it already. So that I would just get back to that and finish that up. Yeah. Originally, I was going to be potentially collaborating with this guy who created the TV show McGee and Me back in like the 90s. He was really interested. He had a script. I revised his script, and we had our agent, or I guess not agent, but my writer's rep was really interested in it, and like we were going to basically like co-create it and split creator credit for it and pitch it. But he was eager to kind of get it out there, and at some point in the process of this, I had to just tell him like there's just no way I don't want to hold up his property because I am busy with this book. So initially I thought that was something I might be able to pile on top of this book. But at the end of the day, I just kind of had to let him know, like, hey, if we still have time to kind of collaborate on that, we can. But yeah, I wouldn't hold up the whole process of like pitching it or getting a deal for it just on my part, because, you know, which is kind of a bummer because that writer is, you know, sells a lot of books, and not just that, like he's a really brilliant guy, and it would have been a fun collaboration. So I'm guessing that by the time I'm done with this book, I'm guessing that pitch might already have a deal. If not, I might also kind of throw that in with 2 stories. But after the 2 stories thing, I do actually think I want to do the jet ski story. I want to do something funny, I think, after the fact. I just think doing something humorous would be really fun. Because it's been most of my books so far have been pretty serious and like slice of life, and I think it would be fun to do something that's just fun and silly. And I think I'd be okay at writing that kind of thing. Which isn't to say, you know, like I'm not like a comedian or anything, but I do think I have decent sense of humor, and I think it would be fun to kind of feed that a little bit and try something humorous. But yes, yeah. But my choice of project would definitely be finishing up 2 stories, because 2 stories is an important book to me, and I think it not only is important to me, but it needs to actually happen and come out. Is that too much white? I think it kind of works, because the hallway is kind of like ivory with like these pink things. So I think that's what I'll do. But there is one little thing I want to do here, which is we're gonna make these little areas that same pink. About the molding at the top. Yeah, the molding at the top's more white. Okay. So let's select, modify, expand. The uncle. Well, maybe Uncle Coogan can be a maybe Uncle Coogan could be a character in the Victorian jet ski book. Maybe that is the Victorian jet ski guy. But I do think doing something humorous would be fun. All right, guys. Not now, you can quote me on that. Oh, we've been streaming for an hour. Let me get another cup of coffee, and I'm gonna put on. Let's see here. I'm gonna put on a trailer that I haven't played in a while. I haven't given a lot of love to Luhan's amazing trailers, so here I will play. Which one do I want to play? So let's play Home Shopping Kemble.
Well, thank you, Colleen. I hope your daughter Kelly does well at North Carolina State this year. Well, we got another caller on the line. Elizabeth from Phoenix, Arizona. Elizabeth, what can we do for you? Are you ready to do some shopping, girl?
Oh, yes, Terry. I am ready to do some shopping today. I'm interested in that 2-book set you have. 2 Stories and Jacob's Apartment.
Oh, well, that's a great choice.
In fact, I bought these books before. I gave a set to my grandson, Hunter. These books are amazing.
Well, they sure are, and if you buy both of them, you really get the whole feel of the whole Joshua Kemble universe. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do, Terry. These books are remarkable because, for one, you can take them anywhere. You can put them in your car, and you can go to the park or the river. We've gone to the river. My husband Taylor and I, we just love it. And I murdered my husband at the river. Yeah, I did. But these still are amazing books.
So, Paul said, is it a steam-powered jet ski? Okay, so the Victorian jet ski thing is, it literally came late at night when this was years ago when I was working on a page for this, where it was kind of like a pan-in kind of shot. So it had, like a scene of like London from above, and then it kind of zooms in closer and closer until we get to the location, and then it says the location in England that we're looking at, right? And this is in the book I'm working on now. But in the process of doing this, I had this funny idea that wouldn't it be great to have an overhead shot of London, and then the next panel is a shot of a bridge in London, and then the next shot is under the bridge, and it shows a man with a monocle and a top hat, and he's in Victorian era outfit, and he's riding just a modern jet ski with Uzis attached to it, and maybe he's wearing, I don't know, he's got a real serious expression, he's pissed off. And then it zooms in on his face, and he's it's like a Miami Vice kind of look to it, but in Victorian times. And then there's a caption that says Victorian England 1854. And just from that, I was like, I have to do that as a book. I love that idea of that intro of a jet ski guy. It basically, it's a bad premise, but it's mix Miami Vice with Victorian it by having it be steampunk stuff. It's no, it just is Uzis and jet skis and other kind of modern things in the era of Victorian England. And then when marketing it and promoting it, I could use the same stuff I'm going to use with this, which is all sincere, right? Where with this book, it's a historical fiction graphic novel of things that actually happened. But you do the same thing with the jet ski book, where you just, would call it a Victorian historical fiction novel of things that actually happened. I think that is gold. I think that would be really fun. And the plot line would be, finding the worst episode of Miami Vice and maybe using that plot structure, right, for a book. What is Smuggler's Blues? All right. So, yeah, so it's interesting, and anyhow, one thing that's been really cool is William Goldsmith has one of those tales of tragedy, right? Imagine being the guy who right before a band became one of the biggest bands in the world, right? It's kind of similar to the Beatles. The Beatles have a story about I think it was in the book or the movie Backbeat, which I love that movie. I haven't seen it in years, but the movie Backbeat is really cool for kind of capturing the kind of punk rock version of the Beatles that a lot of people aren't familiar with. But it's also about the fifth Beatle, right? What does it feel like to be that guy? It's one of those scenes, one of those notorious rock stories where it's you always kind of feel bad for the guy who was in the biggest band in the world and then in this case chose to leave kind of similar to the fifth Beatle, I believe, chose to leave. He didn't get replaced. He just was like, I want to go to art school or whatever, you know? What does it feel like to be that guy, you know, where you're like that close to being like, that has got to tear you up. So one thing that's been nice about William Goldsmith's story recently is, you know, Sunny Day Real Estate. Like I got to go to their reunion. They were just a diary, and now they're still touring. So they've expanded their tour and just been playing tons of live shows, and there's a potential they might make more music, like newer music, which I think would be great because they're one of my favorite bands. But it's also really nice for William Goldsmith because I think that's got to be pretty psychologically hard on somebody, you know, where you were always kind of struggling. Your band never really blew up, and when it did blow up and get famous, it was already broken up, you know. And then the influence it had was huge. So it's kind of like being the Pixies, you know, or something like that, a band like that where you're very influential and very important in the history of rock and roll, but like nobody knows or cares. It could feel about you. And meanwhile, your bandmate who stuck with the band that you quit is, you know, I mean, I can't even imagine the net worth of the members of I would imagine they're you know, being in the Foo Fighters right now, you're probably pretty set, like, you know, money wise. That would be tough to deal with, like, you know, potentially having resentment and stuff like that. And I have watched a couple interviews with Goldsmith where it, you know, he goes into that and stuff like that, and it's always kind of on and off between, you know, bitterness with David Grohl to, you know, oh, we're cool, you know. But it's, anyhow, from a fan standpoint of both bands, much more so Sunny Day Real Estate, it's nice to see that he has like he's able to like play in a band that's like selling out crowds, and they're finally kind of getting their due as a band, and being able to like experience that. To me, that's really cool. It's almost like an unsung hero of music, being able to actually, you know, taste the fruit of the beautiful things they made, you know. You're a loose cannon, and by cannon I mean a large weapon mounted on wheels, as one would expect at this time. That's what I'm saying. Just things like that. Tells him, you're going over the edge, you're dangerous. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't want to change it too much from a Miami Vice episode, but I do want things to be like really awkwardly, for this, you know, Miami Vice kind of thing. I do want things to awkwardly be historically explained, like very much like what Gary was just saying, where it, you know, you have like what would be like almost like a fifth grader's version of an explanation for why Uzis and jet skis are existing in the time period, or, you know, like, so the cops, like the dialogue wouldn't even really be all that accurate to, like in this book, like the dialogue, the setting, the book I'm working on now is all really meticulously time era appropriate. But I want to do a book where it's nothing like that, but it's presented as if it's an attempt at that. But like a really bad attempt. So, yeah. So like the police chief would say things that are really inappropriate for the time period, but then be like, for the Victorian era that we are in, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, nunchucks would have to exist in it, you know. Maybe some Victorian ninjas. Yeah, I think that would be a fun playground to just kind of that, are very goofy because, again, you know, this story I'm working on is very poignant and serious, and Jacob's Apartment is very poignant and serious. You know, Two Stories is like super depressing and confessional, and I'm proud of all of those books, but I do think it would be fun to play in an area where I could, you know, things that are my sense of humor, get a little Monty Python-ish. I think that would be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. He said Nicolas Cage and Eric Roberts would say yes to the script. Yeah, something, you know, akin to that. Just having fun playing around with it. I should probably stop talking so publicly about it, because at some point somebody's just going to jump in on it and do the Victorian jet ski story. And I'll be like William Goldsmith. I'll just be like, it was me, it was my idea. And I'll be out here poor, and that person will be raking in $1 billion. Okay. It's $1 billion idea, guys, okay? The way I'm envisioning it, though, it would be very funny. I have some, I don't know, but anyhow, the next book though that I have to do is a very serious book, which is, you know, Two Stories, book 2, and I would like to see that to the end because I am a finisher, and okay, I need to color now that I'm kind of seeing what I did here with the location. So this couch we got to do here. Kind of a brown couch. How now, brown couch? Dylan said that's what she said because I'm a finisher. No, I can't leave that story unresolved. It's too important of a story for me. And you know, for those of you who followed the process of me roughing it out and stuff, I think most people who've read Two Stories would agree. Like it's definitely one of those stories that I'm supposed to tell. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, you know, I feel like Jacob's Apartment was that when I initially made it. Two Stories book 1 was that. It's like I'm here to tell. But I feel like Two Stories in particular is a story that if it doesn't get finished, it just doesn't seem right. Like it, because it has such a good resolution. Like I am really proud of the work I've done on that so far. So I feel like that has to be my first priority. Yeah, Jim was saying they already made a full-length feature movie from your idea. They move fast. That's true. All right, guys. We have a couple things that I have to work on here. I got to get this couch done. The fun part about this is I think I can replicate these flats and then just change the flats on her. Let's see. I just need to find... Okay, that had white. There's kind of a... kind of a deeper thing going on here with the flooring. Okay. But I do think doing something fun and silly, especially after finishing, you know, finishing 2 stories, I think would. But there's also this side of me, and I'm sure, like, Jim, I don't know if you get there occasionally. Paul, too. Like, I don't know if you guys have this thing where, like, the compulsion to, like, think of, like, taking time off. I definitely, that seems really appealing to me right now. After 2 stories, that, like, there is a side of me that would also like to just paint for a little bit, you know, and just like do some kind of different art thing. But I do think by that point I'll convinced to do another comic. Just if history has shown me anything, it seems to me like whether I like it or not, I'm kind of going to be doing comics probably until I die. Like I really I can't quit comics. I can't quit them, man. That's kind of how I feel. But I do think it would also be fun to take a year and just paint. The problem with being a creative, and I'm sure you guys will experience this too, but it's the time is our biggest nemesis as artists. With the limited time that we have, there's so many stories and things that would be fun to do. And you just kind of have to pick and finish. I think that's why people who get real precious about ideas are kind of missing out on a big opportunity as creatives, because if okay, now we can kind of get into it. So yesterday's stream, I was mentioning Gary had sent our group chat a message about The War of Art, the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, which I'm a big fan of, and I think people should read. But it was like a quote that some of the creatives in the group agreed with, some of them didn't, and it's like the idea of pick the thing you're scared to do most and do that. If you're like torn between ideas. And here's where I'm going to justify why I agree with that quite a bit. And the reason I agree with, like, if you have your epic, like your story that you feel like you're supposed to get out there, and you're going to build your, like, Lord of the Rings or whatever, there's a couple ways about it that you could approach it. One is, start with a short thing, and just to know that you can do it, and then kind of work your way out to your grand opus. But one of the reasons I think you got to just kind of do your grand opus, and then if it sucks, you'll have learned so much in that process that inevitably a grand opus will come up. Part of why I think that's important is I think when you're young and unaware of how long these things take to do, you know, that grand opus just may never happen if you. And I think, like, if I think of a creator like Craig Thompson is a graphic novelist that I really admire, I just think, like, Blankets is one of the best things ever. But a lot of people may not know that before Blankets, you know, Thompson did Goodbye Chunky Rice. And that's a full graphic novel, and that is a crazy book. It's like very... I think at the time, I think Goodbye Chunky Rice was his grand opus. And then I think when he was done with that, he was like, well, I got to do my grand opus of Habibi, you know, and like it's like these are all his grand opuses. I don't know if that makes sense. But I feel like if Thompson had just continued just making like little short indie comics instead of working on that big thing, that big unachievable thing, I don't know if we'd have a book like Blankets out there. And it's kind of similar with Spiegelman and Mouse. It's like I can't imagine if Spiegelman had just, instead of working on little sections of Mouse when they were publishing Raw, had just done like short comics and that was it. I don't know if Mouse would ever happen. So I do feel like there is a point. I mean, like if you need the confidence to make stuff and you need to make something shorter first, that's probably better. But I do think like, I do think doing your grand opus or working on the thing you really want to make is more important than just kind of like doing filler space and kind of telling yourself like, well, on that magic day when everything's perfect, that's when I'll do this big project. Because I think that more likely than not, if you're built with my kind of personality, like if I just say, oh, I'll work on that someday, and I'm not making daily progress to work on something ambitious, it's just that day is just never going to come. So I think taking active steps to work on that grand opus or whatever is the way to do it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I agree with Pressfield for that reason, because time is limited, and we may not have that many things there. Paul said I'm on a purpose pause for mental health. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. But I think Paul, you did with your graphic novel, you did do it. You know, you just kind of went, I'm going to make this full graphic novel. You committed to it and got it done. And I do think, I'm not saying you always need to be doing that, but I'm just saying if you want to make a great epic thing, make it. And then if it sucks, think of Jeff Smith and Bone. Like, Jeff Smith was doing Bone in his college newspaper, and then he didn't like the style of it, so he perfected it and did it again, But Bone wouldn't exist if he hadn't just been like, yeah, I'm going to make this thing. Because without taking the ambitious shot, like at least with my again, I think this differs for creators, but with my personality, I think without being ambitious with the attempt or just staying away from something I'm scared of, in art, like I would never really get a graphic novel done, because at the end of the day, like graphic novels are scary. Like they take forever, They are scary, but if you want to make them, you got to make them, and be a little fearless with it, and understand, like, don't be so precious with your golden idea, because those are a dime a dozen, right? But like finished, ambitious ideas are really hard to. That's the hard work and the stuff that I think people are scared to do. Jim said, I jump between animation and music when I get sick of one to the other. Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. And there's nothing wrong with like taking a break, but it's like, my point is just like, I agree with Pressfield's statement that, if you're torn between a bunch of things you want to do as a writer, look to the one that is probably the scariest, and that might be a good indicator it's the one you should do. I kind of agree with that. All right. Because I do think sometimes fear is a really good indicator. I see it as an art teacher a lot too, where you know, you see a lot of young artists that are like crippled by fear, and it's not like it's their fault that they're crippled by fear. Like art is the process of kind of facing fears. Like a lot of making art is kind of confronting, you know, like and overcoming the fear of getting it wrong, because art is hard and you will get it wrong, you know. Um but that process of doing it like helps you kind of you need to do. Paul said, I'm waiting for Jim to complete my next opus. I like that. But you know, it's like Paul, I think your work is very impressive. You've completed quite a few like really challenging, crazy projects, and I feel like there must have been a point where you're like, yeah, I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but you just kind of do it. And then, you know, I'm sure like for me, like when I look at those books, they're incredible. I'm sure that to you, you know, there's probably things in it that you're like, meh, you know, I could have done better now, but like, um, there's also probably like a sense of relief or pride. So this is crazy. I got to kind of get these other rooms too from other pages for colors. Okay, so that other room is going to be, it's the primary color here. Green and that yellow. Okay. Now I'm just talking opinions. Like, again, you know, prefaces their stuff when they're talking on YouTube, but it's like I'm not the arbiter of truth here. You know, it's just an opinion. But I'm just saying, for me, that's why that Pressfield thing has so much weight, because, dude, we don't have a lot of time, you know, to make all this stuff, and so I want to make sure I'm not, you know, avoiding making the things I want to make, because especially if I'm pushing them off for like when I'm here, then I will. However, there's also realistic considerations. Like right now, I'm working on the scariest thing I can work on, and then after that, you know, 2 stories was one of the scariest things, and I got to finish that up. And then after that, like, you know, getting into a totally different. But I like Pressfield's idea there. Gary said, I like to share the ones that will create something that people disagree over, or especially hit it home for me, usually number 1. All right, I think that might get us there. The only thing I don't like is this outer purple here now. I'm not a big fan. I kind of want to make that more red than purple. All right, I think that's going to get us closer. And that works. Okay. So there's a couple things I'm going to do here on this page. One is we're going to see if I can match this without, let's try matching it. Yeah. And there's going to be some little adjustments I have to do with the color. But the fun part is I don't think I'm going to have to do too much because it is a lot of the same stuff. There we go. Okay. So, you like my song there, guys? Okay, by the way, if you are tuning in, I am working on page 152 of Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I will later today most likely be working on other things, like the next set of roughs. But this is a historical fiction graphic novel, and right now we're working on coloring the pages. Without having to kind of do all these color selections again. Go ahead and merge this down. But trying to fill in the gaps where things are a little different on the page. So in this case, you know, getting these extra parts. But I do feel like art in itself is really confronting fear, and I'm pretty convinced of that, at least from my own walk in life. And I can definitely say that as, like, teaching people art, I can see how their fear to prevent them from advancing in art. Because a lot of art is just try it, you know, like, you know, learning how to oil paint or do any sort of medium that you haven't used before. It's natural to be nervous before trying something new, but being fearful of trying new things with art can be a sign that it is something you should try, you know. Jim said, quick survey. Who goes back and reads or watches their old stuff? I do. It serves as a reminder and temperature check creatively. I will occasionally, usually after I've finished something. So a good example is, I am guessing that I will probably reread through my published comics, like my 2 graphic novels and maybe my first one, Numb. I'll probably read those when I get my after I get Death But Love. But it's like, it's usually once it's printed. So if once this is printed, I'll probably read through Not Death But Love, and then I might kind of revisit some of the ones that I've finished before that, just as like a boost to kind of keep going. Another motivator that I'll use is I like all my published work to be on a bookshelf. So even if it's like a short comic that I made, you know, for Devastator back in the day, or it's like the short comic I published in Julia Wirtz's I Saw You Miss Connections. Like the short comics that we did as a community with the hundreds. I'll kind of look through those on my shelf along with my books and stuff. Just, you know, sometimes. Every once in a while, it's a good thing to kind of remember that it's possible, because it can be very overwhelming to do this kind of stuff. And also it's fun to see your progress, like things you've improved on, or things I might have forgotten. So yeah, every once in a while I will kind of view or check out my old work. But usually it's after I've finished a big project. I don't know, Jim, if that's for you? Like, do you often kind of wait, finish, almost like kick back and look at your legacy a little bit? Gary was saying he does it mostly as like a temperature check and refreshing a memory. Yeah, that's, I will say with this book, as I'm working on it, I often have to go back through pages and look at it in sequence just to like stay up to date with where I am in the story, you know? Yeah, Gary, you definitely need to do some YouTube videos again. It'd be fun to have you back on. By the way, for my close buddies that are in chat, you know, if you guys ever want to join on a stream while I'm working and kind of chat it up, let me know, and I can try to get you a link so you can hop in. But yeah, I think I always enjoy having you know, some Gary Hodges content on YouTube, particularly that I don't tend to like to stream during, which is when I'm drawing pages. I'm just, you know, like I can do it when I'm roughing, but for some reason when I'm drawing, it's just it's too much thinking to talk during. I don't know if that makes sense. So when I am doing that, it's always fun to have some company, and Gary Hodges videos are good company to have whilst working on stuff. Getting closer, guys. We're kind of patching this part together too. I think on this I might do another replication of the panel. Dylan said a small group work session is a good idea with you guys. Nice. Gary said I much prefer live streaming. I do too. For me, I have to kind of balance it with I enjoy doing live streams, but my end goal isn't to be a YouTuber, you know, like my end goal is to make some comics. And while I love YouTube, you know, I need to kind of think about that. Like, do I want to be spending more time editing videos than I am making the comics that are pretty much the reason I'm doing the videos? And I have to kind of like justify that, you know what I mean? So yeah. Okay, this is actually pretty good. I think what I'll do here is expand the background a little bit. Oh, you know what? Before I expand the background, let's connect this again. It's like a video game, you guys. Okay. We're kind of doing that again, and then we'll go back to this area, clip out the areas that are exceeding. Now I think we're in pretty good standing to... Oh, that's perfect. Okay, yeah. We're in pretty good standing to kind of finish this up. So, I'm going to do a couple things. Now, generally, when I'm coloring and drawing even repeated panels, I like to redraw them entirely. But being that I'm in a deadline environment right now, I have to, you know, use some shortcuts, but hopefully not at the cost of quality, right? There we go. So we're getting closer to the end here. I am excited about the retreat. I think it's literally the weekend before I start teaching. And so that should be fun. I still do have to check to see where it aligns with like my college schedule. But I think college starts later than the high school that I teach at. So I think it's going to work out, and I'm pretty excited about it. But that should be a really fun weekend. It's going to be nice to see everybody again too. Crestline was really great. For those of you who don't know, we did a retreat with Keith Foster, Scott Cirkland, Gary Hodges, Corey Kerr, and myself, where we just kind of worked on art for a weekend, and it was really fun. And very like rejuvenating for like just kind of staying in the fight of this whole thing. And I think very creatively meaningful to a lot of the attendants too. So I'm very excited about it. Plus, honestly, these are like my homies, so you know. Dylan says school starts up this month for you guys. No, I have late this month. I have like orientation type stuff, faculty kind of stuff. And then the official start of it, I believe, is the end of the beginning of next month. But like, I think it's literally like the Tuesday after our art retreat. So. Couple things got shifted here and will get fixed. Now I'll fill in our character. Am I cutting out, guys? I hope I'm not cutting out too much. I kind of fixed the problem, but I still need to really look into contacting like Spectrum and getting that connection issue fixed, because it is like it's just been years since I've had it looked at, and so it makes sense, you know, when you have like an old router, that kind of thing. Dylan said you are here and there. Well, hopefully it's still watchable. But that is something I intend to try to fix probably after this month, because this month is just, at this point, it's crazy time. Why did I do that way? Okay. What I need to do now is select all my Wilsons. Well, there's a couple things. One is, let's start with these. Let's go back here. Okay. And let's go back here. Jaboom. Haha. Okay. And now what I want to do is go to the areas that have Wilson in the lines. And we'll basically do these colors. Do. Yeah, Dylan was saying, yeah, it's pretty watchable, but there are times where it'll freeze and we'll miss a whole sentence. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I might go with like the fiber optic option. Because when we initially moved to this house, that wasn't an option to do fiber optic. And so we're still on like, I think it would be cool to have fiber optic internet again. Years ago, we had that when we lived in Portland, and it was awesome. But when we moved here initially, they didn't have the like fiber optic wasn't even an option because I think the cables weren't laid in the area. But now that it is, because I think since we moved here, they had that fixed. I think enough, if we update it, it might actually end up saving us some money too. But again, this month is kind of like, I just got to work with what I got and plug away as quickly as I can. So I do apologize if that affects the quality. So once I finish these colors, I am going to eat and probably might watch something while I eat. And then start getting my stuff together to start roughing out the next section of pages. And we are very close to done. May not seem like it, but we definitely are awfully close to finished. Let me see if I can undo that. Oh, that's not going to work. Okay, let's do our eyeball color again. Okay. Eyeball color again. Why? Oh. It's on the wrong layer. A little bit more coffee. Get them eyeballs done. Okay. Now let's do the white on the character. This character is Wilson. This is the maid. And basically, she has like 2 costumes so far in the graphic novel. So one of them is kind of a more traditional Victorian maid outfit, kind of English in style. And then this second one is a more kind of in fashion at the time maid outfit that they would have worn that's more kind of this point during Casa Gaidi in Italy. And staying not too far from, I wish I could remember all these places from when I had to research them, but there's like a kind of town square type area near there that Elizabeth actually wrote a poem about. And I had to look up a bunch of reference of like where that was at, because there's like scenes where she's looking out the window and thinking of her poem about a protest, like a union protest at the time. But anyhow, like the fun part is there's like an era of maid outfit that is more kind of appropriate for the area, because when they initially got here and Elizabeth was pregnant with Penn, her son, they went to a market, and the point was to kind of show that Wilson is sort of adapting to Italy at this point. So we have her two outfits so far. I haven't really seen a need to change. And then Robert, initially in this scene when I roughed it out, I had him in a full suit, and that didn't make a lot of sense considering it's like nighttime. And so Rob's kind of staying by her side, so it made more sense to have him without his suit jacket on, but still in kind of formal attire, so you get kind of a narrative like he's been sitting by her side for a long time, to where he's not dressed super formally, but it's still Victorian era, so he's not, dressed completely in night clothes yet. Okay. That Wilson joke, Dylan, has been made many a time at my house, where the maid's name is also the same as the ball from Castaway, which was a great movie. You know what's a great movie with Tom Hanks is freaking Joe versus the Volcano. If you guys have not seen Joe versus the Volcano, check that movie out. It's really great. I rewatched it a couple years back. I used to love it when I was younger, and it's a very anti-corporate movie, but it is very like parabolic of is parabolic the word? I feel like parabolic has a different meaning. That might be the wrong word. It sounds like it should be a word that has to do with something that is a parable. But it's definitely a movie with like very blatant symbolism of, kind of facing the hero's journey and escaping the comfortable. But it's also a really fun movie. But it's literally one of my favorite movies. All right, guys. There we go. I'm going to print this. And we're going to call it. So thanks, guys. Thank you, guys. I'm wearing my special shirt today, so hip, 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 chicka, chicka, chicka. I'll see you guys on the next live stream. I appreciate you guys hanging out. If you have been enjoying this and it's been keeping you company, click that like button. Hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. Whenever I'm live streaming, you guys can always send a super chat. I try to read every super chat if you want to support the channel. Another way you can support the channel is by buying Two Stories or Jacob's Apartment, my two books, or just listening to No Saboteurs or my solo albums. Thank you again for spending the time with me. It helps me get through these pages. We got through it. Next stream, I'll probably be working on roughs for the next sequence. And I will see you guys then. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream.